Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Janome CoverPro 3000. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of this machine. So to start with, this is where you plug it in right here. It has one plug for both the power and the foot control. And then right in front of that is your power switch. Up here we have the differential feed. Now the differential feed is really good for knits that tend to stretch out and get kind of wavy. So the way that works is, I'm going to take the foot off so you can see. There are two sets of feed dogs, one in front and one in back. And so what this does, it governs how much pull those front feed dogs do. So right here on neutral, which is at 1, they pull the same amount. If I put this up at a higher level, now it pulls more in front. And actually you can get it to gather if you do it way high. So depending on your knit, sew out a sample, and you may need to adjust this, or need to just leave it right there at 1. Now it does have where it kind of sinks down into a neutral. When you go past 1 there, it has a kind of a deeper groove. That's the same as on your the dial for lengthening your stitch, the stitch length dial. It has a neutral of 3. You can make it longer or shorter. The nice thing about making it shorter is you can make a denser stitch, so that if you're using that top cover and you want it to fill in more, you can do that. Okay, this is your hand wheel. Now the hand wheel, like on a regular sewing machine, you turn it counterclockwise or towards you if you were going to hand walk some stitches. And there are some stitches that you do want to hand walk just to get them started, like after you've started threading, hand walk 3 or 4 stitches. That's the part you would use to do that. Now to put it into a neutral position with the needles up at the highest position, you move your hand wheel until this mark matches the mark on the cabinet, or roughly this part here. You can kind of feel where that is. That'll make sure that the needles are up at the highest position when you take your fabric out from under the foot or put it under the foot. Okay, now this foot, you can get other feet with your machine, for your machine, but the way this goes back on, you put this under here. It has a little bar right there. You put it right into the clamp right there. Lower your presser lever, and the presser lever is on the back of the machine right here. You can do a little bit extra higher if you need to. Okay, so now this here is a switch that slightly adjusts the tension. And that's really helpful if you have fine fabrics like tricot that you're doing. So you want to hem a tricot slip. This is perfect to put that up there like that. On the other hand, if you have a nice beefy interlock knit or a double knit, you might want to have this down on standard like that. Again, test it out with some fabric, with a scrap of your fabric, to make sure that it looks like the way you want it to be. By the way, cover stitch machines are chain stitch machines, so it is possible to unchain a mistake. You can pretty easily do that. Okay, next thing I want to show you is these are the spool pins. Now there are 5 of them depending on the kind of stitching you're doing. Again, this part down here, the cover comes open, and it tells you, depending on what kind of stitch you want to do, it tells you what things you need to thread. Okay. This is your thread tree here. Now when you are not using your machine, put that down, put your cover on. That's important because it's going to keep dust out of your machine. And too much dust is going to affect your tension. Also, it'll keep dust off your thread too. Keep your machine nice and clean when you have your cover. When you're ready to sew, make sure you lift this up. That's important because it'll give the correct tension on your thread. Now, if you look at this thread tree, I'll show you here. You see you've got a hole here and then a hook here. The hook is for threading it quickly, but I usually prefer to use the hole here because when I have it down and I lift it back up, the thread's not going to jump out of there as long as I've threaded it through the holes on the thread tree. Make sure it's even here, not twisted. Even will keep your thread tension even. Now, when you're threading your machine, of course, lift up your presser foot. That opens the tension disc. If you look carefully, they're closed now with it down. They're open with it up. Okay, so we've got these thread guides, we've got your tension dials. The tension dials can be adjusted, again, depending on the kind of thread you're using, the kind of stitch you're using. Your book gives you a lot of guidelines, but really you just need to try it out and see what works best. Look at my other video on threading, my other couple of videos, and it'll give you a little more ideas of how to do that. Okay, so we thread it through here. This is where the take-up lever sort of thing is. These thread guides are for your top cover stitch. And I'm going to show you the difference. If you don't use a top cover, you're going to have like this. Okay, if you do use a top cover, it's going to look more like this. And this is the mechanism for that. You just push that down, it's all ready to go. It's integrated into the machine. Now, if you're going to do a stitch like this without the top cover, there's a button right back here. Push that button, comes right back up. Okay. All right. Now, I did it from behind just to show you what it looks like so my hand wouldn't be in the way, but certainly you can do it from the front. Then, over here, of course, we have the needles, and you can have the needle in the 2 needles on one side, all 3 needles, 2 needles on the other side. Or if you're going to do just a chain stitch, some people like to do that, the nice decorative stitch, you can just have a single needle like that. Then we have a thread cutter in back here on the side of the machine. We also have this light, which gives a little bit extra light. It's really nice to kind of help fill in the shadows there. And then we have up here the presser foot pressure dial. Now you can turn that depending, and it kind of helps with, just like I was talking about fine fabrics, or fabrics that tend to kind of stretch out a little bit more, you can change that a little bit. I usually like to keep it at neutral, which means this line here is even with the top of the cabinet. What this does is it governs how tightly your presser foot presses on the fabric. Okay, and then we have the needle threader. Now the needle threader has a handle on the side. You push this down. Right now it's adjusted for the right hand needle. As you can see, the little prong is right here on the right hand needle. Here it's on the middle, and here it's on the left. You can thread your needles in any order. Just remember, the needle that you're threading, this little lever needs to be at that point, the left, medium, or right. Okay. So this also has a free arm feature. So you pull this thing off, and this is great for doing pant legs and maybe even some sweater cuffs. And it just gives you a little extra room to sew that. Then of course we have the front cover, and I've shown you that. With the guides, this is really nice to have an overall threading guide, and then one specifically for that top cover thread, and then one specifically showing you how you put your needle threads in. And then this is your looper. So you have a lower looper, which is necessary for any time you're using your machine. You need to have your lower looper threaded. The top cover, that's optional, but the lower looper has to be threaded. So to thread that, it's really easy to thread those last 2 guides by pulling out this knob, and that turns that to the right. You can thread these last 2 guides. Once you're done, just push that back in. So it's a really wonderful feature to have. That makes it very easy to thread that lower looper. And then we close this up. There you go. Now there are these extra little screw holes here, and that's for extra guides that you can get, optional things that might be helpful to you. You can take a look at see what we have here at the store. This is a wonderful machine. I like how it sews, and so I invite you to look at some of my other videos on this machine. Stay tuned, we have lots of other videos. If this was a helpful video, give us a thumbs up. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. Thanks for watching today. See you later.